Hello. What's up, guys? How's everybody doing? Hi, Aaron.
Doing good. Hi, Julie.
Um, Little quick announcement here before we get going. For those of you that don't know, hello, everybody. Um, our friend Keith Pitch, you know, Keith, our favorite lender, Loan Depot, Keith, that shows up for us and is so helpful for us. He had like a mini stroke. He's okay and at home, but he got dizzy and his hand went numb, and they rushed him to the hospital. And they can't figure out where he had a blockage or something. But I just want you all to know that one of our beloved friends, young guy, probably younger than me, Keith Pitch with Loan Depot.
If you have to go to my website,
Put your mic on. I mean, I don't know. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, mute yourself.
Mute yourself there. Anybody who hasn't muted themselves, please mute yourself until you're ready to talk, which you can do at any time. But I just want to make sure that you guys all are aware of Keith's home and everything's okay as far as I know, but please keep him in your thoughts. And, you know, he's a good friend of ours. He's a great friend to all of us in the real estate investing community by sharing all his knowledge. And him and I just closed a fantastic deal together last week. Really good story with a VA loan and on a duplex here in by Green Lake, kind of the Woodland Park area, zoo area. So we love you, Keith. And I just want to kick it off by saying, please think about Keith. So other than that, how's everybody doing? Anybody got anything, any questions that they need help with this week? Anybody working on stuff that they need to run by the group collective genius here? Or are you guys all just at home eating Cheetos and watching Netflix? What's happening? Nobody's doing anything? No?
Retail stuff. Retail stuff.
Retail stuff. Retail stuff. Let's see is there anybody that this is their first time? Kamina, I don't recognize your name necessarily. You guys unmic yourself and say hello. Hi, Kamina. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? How about Robert?
I'm on. I'll say hello.
Say hi. Tell us what your real estate discipline is, and you know what do you do with real estate?
Well, I was here last week, but I didn't really get a chance to speak up or say anything. I was a real estate investor back in Ohio, like 10 years ago, back for quite a while. I had a number of different properties, and I kind of sold that and cleared out and moved here to Seattle about 10 years ago. I got deeply involved in a very small business that kind of sucked me in for a bunch of years. And I recently woke up and realized that I needed to get my butt back into real estate. And so I'm kind of like, I have experience from the past, and I'm just trying to get my game back on and get back into the market, because I've been out for probably 10 years and just watching my home appreciate, but that's not really real estate investing. So I kind of realized I need to get busy again.
Awesome. So you're looking to buy, you're looking to invest, correct?
Invest, yeah.
What do you think you're looking for? Are you looking for flips, burrs, buy and hold stuff, multifamily?
Probably buy and hold multifamily. I'm a fan of the small complex, the small commercial 6 to 12 unit kind of properties.
Perfect.
I had triplexes and some bigger complexes in Ohio. I enjoyed them, and that's kind of where I'm looking to go now.
Why not invest out of state in Ohio and just live here where it's cheaper?
It's actually a good idea. I'm actually looking at investing out of state, possibly, just not Ohio.
Okay.
I had a property, to give you an example, I had a property that I held for 15 years and had to sell it for 10% less than I bought it for.
Ooh,
Properties are actually going upside down there. Now, maybe today they're a little bit better, but the economy in the area that I had purchased that, it was cash flow, but with not being anywhere nearby, it didn't cash flow enough. Like I had a triplex I bought for 59,000. And it cash flowed positive, but the increments, it's take everything you do and subtract a zero, you know, so it really wasn't enough to afford property management, that kind of thing.
gotcha.
So
Are you aware, do you know, have you tapped in? I want to introduce you to something that might be helpful for you, a group for you to join, and that is the Addicted to ROI group. My friend Jennifer Beatles. Have you heard of this?
no, what platform?
Jump on Facebook.
Okay.
And she also owns agentinvest.com, but jump on Addicted to ROI on Facebook, and that'll get you going in the right direction. I'm actually recording a big investor summit thing that she is putting out. I'm recording that on Monday, where she's going to be having a great kind of agent investor summit that she is going to be marketing, probably 2,500 to 3,000 agents and so forth, and investors will be on that. But she is your out of state, your local person here who is probably the most tapped into out of state investing, as well as deal flow. So if you're looking for deals in markets, she's already vetted all the markets. She, you know, for those problems that you were discussing, and she's also, and Joe just dropped the Facebook group in the chat. If anybody's not in Jennifer Beadle's group and you're interested in buying out of state properties in vetted markets with ground teams there that she can connect you with, jump on that, and it's in the chat.
Fantastic.
Good stuff. Good stuff. What else is happening? Anybody else? Anybody else? Min Park, say hi.
Oh, hi guys. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble getting my camera to work for me. But thanks for letting me crash your lunch meeting. I'm a new investor in the Seattle area. I'm interested in doing fix and flips. I've had experience doing this. I'm originally from the East Coast, from the Washington, D.C. area. Did 2 fix and flips prior to having a family. And so now that my kids are older, I'm looking to attack it here in the Seattle market. My husband is a general contractor.
Oh,
So
nice.
it makes things a little bit easier, but just interested in learning about the market here, and just from the group as a whole.
And do you, think you're interested in flipping or buy and holds? Most people who flip, I think at some point go, dang it, I should have kept those, right?
Yeah,
It takes a few years, I think, for people to figure that out.
yeah. Yeah, I think, obviously, things have changed since I originally was doing fix and flips out on the East Coast. My husband has more experience here in the Seattle market. He's lived here a little bit longer than I have. And so I'm open. I'm at the point of discovery at this point, and just understanding how to maneuver through the market, understand financing, which is a bit different than what I'm used to. I've always lived in the property as a primary residence
Good.
when I initially flipped. And so it's a different set of circumstances and factors now.
Is that your plan now? Would you guys do a house hack type of situation now or not?
We wouldn't. With
Okay.
4 kids,
Okay.
it just makes things a lot more difficult.
No issues there. And not getting personal on you, but
Yeah.
just so I can put you in the right direction. He's self-employed as a general contractor, or he has a job?
He's self-employed.
And how about you? Do you have a W-2 job at all?
I did. I am one of the many victims of COVID. My 20-year career I was laid off from
Oh, man.
earlier this year. In hindsight, it's a blessing because I've been able to spend just tremendous amounts of times with my kids,
Yeah.
and my family. helping them transition through virtual school, and then really chasing my dream. This is something my husband and I have always talked about doing. And it seems like a good time for us to just dive right in and make that dream come true.
Love the positive attitude. What industry were you in that you got COVID hit?
Yeah, so I spent 20 years with Nordstrom.
Okay.
Working in the retail industry, climbed that corporate ladder. But again, I think if I were to pick and choose, fixing, flipping, being a part of the real estate industry is something that my husband and I have always dreamed of being a part of.
Excellent. All right. Good stuff. Thanks for joining us. We do this every single week from 11:30 to 12:30. So sometimes like today, I'm so busy myself. I have 12-year-old twin girls, and they had tests and book report presentations this morning and decided they needed stuff printed off and all kinds of, I had to go to their school and grab their test out of our school library little locker thing. So I feel you, the juggling the kids and the family and all the work. Good stuff. What else, guys? What else is happening today? Troy, you got any words of wisdom you want to drop on us? Anything exciting happening in your world?
Words of wisdom. Don't forget that the end of the year is coming up, and it is time to start your goal planning for next year.
Right.
I like to take a whole weekend and do another set of those whiteboards and mind map my goals and my plans for the year. That's coming up probably next weekend. I'll block out the whole weekend and just be in the zone for real estate.
That's a good topic. Maybe we're going to jump on that topic today, Troy. We can talk about that in a second. I'll come back to you and touch on that. Anybody else how about Federico? Can you hear me? I'm calling you guys out. This is like school. I'm going to make you raise your hand. Federico, can you hear me? Do you want to say hi?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Federico, new investor, out of state, investing, Grand Rapids, Michigan. New in the group, trying to learn. Happy to. Thank you for joining.
Are you in the Seattle
thank you for
area?
letting me join the group.
Absolutely.
I'm from Renton area.
And you're in Renton right now, and you just are investing in Michigan?
I started this year actually. Last January. It's gonna be a year this coming January.
Why Michigan?
Why Michigan? I used to live there, and I think it's more affordable for me. But I'm also interested in looking around and see what can I afford, or what can I do as far as investing over here.
Good
and
stuff.
So that's why I'm excuse me.
No, you're good. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Sorry, Julie. Otherwise, trying to learn pretty much.
For those of you that are interested in Eastern Washington, my friend and fellow broker, Wendy Stanley, who is kind of a co-partner with me, we're kind of doing some stuff together. She's also at EXP. I had her post on Seattle Investors Club Facebook page. You guys hopefully are all on there. And she is a off-market digger of properties over there and a broker in Eastern Washington. She's in the Tri-Cities. And if you guys didn't see her post and you're interested in investing in Eastern Washington, drop your name in that post and get on her list there, because she's digging out some off-market properties, whether that be single family or multifamily, etc. over there. Scott Price in the house, multifamily and commercial investor. Hi, Scott.
Hey, howdy. Hi.
How do you go?
Yeah, I'll have to check her out. I'm interested. I mean, I already have a few properties in Eastern Washington, but I'm interested in more, so I'll have to check her out.
How's your portfolio going, Scott? Tell us about your portfolio and how's it going with COVID, or any challenges have you had during this last year?
Yeah, mostly fairly well. Certainly a percentage, a small percentage drop in overall rent collection, just for the obvious reasons. But most people, meaning most tenants, most residents, have been responsible and trying to do the right thing. So it's been a little bit gratifying about the state of the human race. You know? So
Right.
there certainly are opportunities for people to abuse the system with the eviction moratoriums and all that, and we do have that, no doubt about it. But it's a relatively small percentage, fortunately. So
Let's talk for a second. The federal ban on evictions, doesn't this expire at the moment at the end of the year? But the Washington moratorium extends through this winter ban, which takes us to what, March or what? Anybody?
Well, the biggest problem is they keep rolling forward. So no matter what date you say, it doesn't matter. So,
Right. But I mean, as of today, that is the thing, right? Is it?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So federal expires, but I'm sure they're going to kick the can forward. And state of Washington, which we're stuck with. Aaron says, is it all of Washington or just Seattle that has the eviction ban?
Yeah, it's all Washington.
Seattle.
No, that's an Inslee thing. It's a state of Washington.
State of Washington, right? Because Scott owns properties in Eastern Washington as well. So, has anybody tried to file an eviction? I believe you in Washington. I know federally, I believe you can tee up and get in the queue and get your paperwork done. But I don't know in Washington, what's the rule? Can you even get in the eviction queue?
Keep in mind with the federal, you have to have a federally backed mortgage. If you don't have a federally backed mortgage, you can still evict.
Right. So if you have a conventional loan on your property, right, you can evict.
Yeah.
It's FHS, federal backed mortgages, right? Great comment, Troy. Good comment. Very good there.
I had to school a judge or two about that.
Oh yeah? Yeah. Hey, Joe, if you can hear me, have you had a chance, has Inslee's office responded at all? Did you reach out to them?
Yep, no responses yet.
So I think I've made buddies with Matthew Gardner, and he's our very well-respected economist. If you guys don't know who Matthew Gardner are, you kind of have your head in the sand, honestly. He is Windermere's chief economist, and he has been the go-to economist here in the Seattle area and even on the West Coast for over 20 years. And we just did a podcast with him. He's somebody that I've followed, and most people I know in real estate business follow Matthew Gardner for over 20 something years. He sits on Inslee's housing committee. So I'm going to see if I can leverage Matthew to get Inslee on the podcast so we can talk about evictions, let him talk about COVID and tell everybody to wear a mask and, whatever he wants to say. And then also talk about landlord tenant and the challenges that he faces governing this sort of situation. You guys think that'd be a good idea? If I can pull it off?
It'd be great to put him on the spot.
Yeah. Well, and then we get Enrique on there who's suing him, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
it'd be interesting to get the perspective because, we always hear it from, our perspective as investors, and the challenges that it creates. But, to hear from, the governmental perspective where they're trying to solve some pretty complex issues, just good. But might be a good chance to help him understand some of the complexities from our side too. So,
yep. So if you guys, let me ask you a question. I just had this deal where my buyer was looking to buy a duplex, and he's living in one side and he's renting out the other. He wants to rent out the other. The tenants were on month to month, or the tenant on the other side was going to move out. And so do you feel I was writing up the contract initially? Basically what I did is I didn't know the tenant was moving out when we first made this offer, or we were looking to make this offer on this duplex. And so what I did is I basically wrote into the contract that there would be a holdback of the seller's proceeds. This is just me having fun being a dork, because I am a super dork, total nerd here, admitted, I'm a nerd. And my buyer was buying a Seattle duplex, live in one side, wanted to rent out the other. And I wrote into the contract that there was going to be a holdback from the seller to cover any shortfall in rent that the current tenant on the other side was not paying, that there'd be like a 90-day reconciliation, and that this holdback would stay in place until the Seattle eviction moratorium was lifted. I got super creative. I thought I was the smartest person on the planet. Wrote all these terms. You guys following what I'm doing? I'm trying to protect my buyer from buying a property where the moment he buys it, the tenant could stop paying for whatever reason, right? And therefore, this is a property that the current owner had free and clear. And I wrote into the contract basically a holdback clause that the seller, if they wanted to get the price they wanted for their property, needed to participate in the risk of COVID and the downside of this tenant stopping to pay, and nobody could evict or do anything about it. What do you think about that, Scott?
Oh, I think it's great. But is your question now it's changed because the tenant is leaving?
Yeah.
So
I ended up not
the
needing
risk is. Yeah, so I mean, it basically will boil down to whether or not you can fill that spot again, and many landlords would actually like that, because you can potentially get onto a brand new lease at market rate, and you can get them on a new 12-month, which will probably be beyond COVID. So, I mean, it all sounds good. And actually, in some ways, if that was an under market rent that they were getting from the prior tenant, which is an if, I don't know if you know that, if you know the numbers there, but that could actually be a better situation.
Yeah, I mean, we've already closed. We closed last week.
Yeah. But I mean, in terms of the rents and the rental income, starting new,
right.
Yeah, the one big issue right now is when you have an existing tenant, you can't raise the rent even if the market will support it. So you can do a new 12-month lease if you want, even if they're paying tenant and all that kind of stuff, but you can't do an incremental increase to it.
Right.
So, but if you're starting fresh like that, then
the question is, how do you buy buildings these days? Dion's going to kick in. How do you buy a building these days where there's upside, and you know what I mean, and you want to protect against eviction? What I was doing was trying to come up with a creative solution to let this guy get the building sold, let my buyer get this duplex he really, really wanted, and yet protect my buyer from any risk related to COVID and this rent and eviction issues. And I thought I was a genius. Keith thought I was a genius at the time, but I ended up not needing to use that language because the tenant gave notice to move out and was going to move out prior to closing. So I just wrote into the contract, the unit, whatever, the other unit must be vacant as a condition of closing and prior to closing, right? So we got it vacant, and therefore we could do whatever we want. We get our own person, our own lease at market rate, right? Otherwise, the alternative, I was writing it up like, hey, seller, you have to participate with me in this holdback through, not on the rent side, I couldn't raise the rent, but it was good enough that we could have participated in the seller participating in the risk through the lifting or the eviction going away, right? Kind of that was the point I was trying to accomplish there. Go ahead, Dion, what do you have to say?
I'm sorry, actually, you completely answered what I was going to bring up.
Okay. Dion's a big multifamily investor, growing his portfolio. We had him on the podcast. I can't remember what number it was. Maybe Joe will drop it. Really great podcast with Dion McNeely, who's here with us today. Joe, maybe if you get a chance, drop it in the chat. Very inspiring for you guys, just getting started. Just a regular guy here, killing it, building his real estate portfolio. So happy, Dion, that you have are participating with us every week now. It makes me happy, makes us all look good here. So
no, I'm happy to be here. The one thing that Scott said about not being able to raise rents, was something that I just dealt with Section 8. There was a lease coming up at the end of December, and rent which should go up. It's like $200 below the area average. I wanted to go up $80. Section 8 said no, because the lease has to have a scheduled increase in the lease. And so we signed a new lease starting December or January 1st at the current rent with a scheduled increase for February 1st. And Section 8 said, nope, you could do that. And so if you have the problem where you can't do rent increases, there's an or in the governor's order of either the eviction moratorium ends or you have a scheduled increase in the lease. So if you sign a new lease and put a scheduled increase into it, you can get around that.
And this is you using your VA loan or what? Or no? What
No,
loan
this
do
is
you
just
have on
an
it?
investment, and it's an investment property that I have Section 8 tenants in.
Okay. Very good loophole tip there. You should record that in a video, what you just said, and send it to me. So I just want to say, it just reminded me, for you guys, I want you all to know that what Joe and I are doing here, starting now and kicking off, Kenny will repeat it in just a second. What we're going to do is invite everybody who wants to record 2 or 5 minute videos or whatever, and with tips, just like Dion just said, a tip like that, or we're going to have like a DIY corner for all you contractor types. Let's say you go onto a property and you solve some sort of problem yourself or whatever, record it and send it to me. I need a thumbnail picture, and we're going to put it on our YouTube page. We're inviting everybody to record whatever they want. It's got to be vetted through me or Joe. And then we're going to let you guys participate. It makes you a voice of authority. It might be, you can say on there, hey, send me all your deals. You can say whatever you want, right? Whenever you are doing something like that, it brings credibility to you, because you're on our stuff that's already has credibility to it. And I'm inviting you all to do it. It's a fun project that I thought I wanted to kick off this year, so everybody can participate, and have their tips and tricks and resources. And we don't want to be like, hey, I had a big win, I just did this. If you have a cool case study of a certain situation that you did, that's great. But we're not going to put out videos of every time you get a good deal done, if you guys get what I'm saying. It's got to be an educational thing, or a tip, or a resource, or a DIY little video, or whatever stuff like that you want to share. And if you aren't sure if your idea or topic is worthy of what I'm talking about, just, text me and I'll tell you yes or no. But go ahead and do it, Dion. That'd be a perfect thing right there, to share. Record yourself. And you know what? The less professional and more real your videos are, the better. People want to hear from real people. We don't need professional lighting and setting and all that shit. Just record yourself sitting right there, Dion, and send it to me. So can you say it one more time, Dion? Because Kenny didn't hear it.
Sure. The current governor's order has a ban on rent increases until the eviction moratorium ends, or if your lease has a scheduled rent increase, that's allowed. So when we signed a new lease with the current tenant, we scheduled an increase 1 month into the lease, and Section 8 said that was acceptable. So it was a way to get an increase in for this next year and still be in compliance.
And is the 1 month applying because your increase is less than like 10% of the current rent? You know what I mean? The 30-day schedule could be, if you're trying to bump longer than that could be a thing, right? Higher than 10%, that could be a thing, or what?
Right. No, you had a good point there. So there's actually a 60-day requirement to do rent increases. So we did this. That was another reason why February 1st worked. It was 60 days before February 1st that we were signing the new lease. So if you signed it now for January 1st, you'd probably have to do March 1st for the increase, so that you have that 60-day delay before the increase kicks in. That's a good point.
Such a huge tip. You guys, it was worth you all showing up today just to hear that. I swear to God. Right there, Dion, you get the gold star for today.
Yeah, hey, I have a question for Dion related to that.
Go for it.
Dion, was that a specialized form that you utilized to do the scheduled rent increase, or did you just create an addendum yourself and include that in the lease agreement?
I didn't even really do an addendum. I just added a sentence to the part. I get my leases off the Washington State website. I don't have it memorized, but there's a site on the Washington website where they have landlord and tenant resources. So I took my leases from there, and then I add things like no water beds and specifically just, who takes care of what part of the yard, because mine are all small multifamily. But on the rent thing, it said what the current rent is, and then I just added a sentence that says, as of 2/1/2021, the current rent increases to, and then I added to cover myself, this is less than a 5% increase, and it's greater than 60 days notice from date of signing and stuff like that. But it really wasn't like a whole form or anything.
Yeah, that's brilliant with COVID right now. A brilliant idea.
Let's talk about that for future, like for, let's say they were going to renewal within a year. I know that nobody wants, people want to know, pay what market rent is a year from now. We don't know what that is, but is there a way to make this easy 1 year out like that with a renewal? That's what we do in commercial real estate, right, Scott? We have our annual increases. Can we do that with, would that be an idea? I'm just talking, I don't know. What do you guys think? There are multifamily people scheduling rent increases out, a year out, or do you want to leave yourself the option of going higher than you think? You don't want to tie yourself to that.
Most leases already have, if you go month to month, you jack up the rent, $100, $150. So I would keep that. And then if we're still facing down a moratorium a year from now, you've already got it built into your lease, and you don't have to worry about it, right? You just don't renew a new lease.
The thing that made me think of it is in the governor's order, they actually have the sentence. We understand rent increases are not typically put in residential leases. This is more of a commercial thing. And that's what made me think, well, it's not typical. They didn't say it's not allowed.
Right.
And
Awesome, dude. Very good, Dion.
So I got a question about that too. So I always have a rent increase clause in my residential lease contract, but I was trying to understand what you're saying some of the limitations were. Like, you guys were talking about a 5%. Is that a thing? And does the increase, like if the lease already says that there's going to be an increase when we renew, do you have to have the 60 days, or is that just whatever the renewal period in the lease is?
The change has to be known by the tenant more than 60 days in advance. So if they sign a lease now saying that it goes up a year from now, if we renew, that's a scheduled increase. Okay. If the wording is in the current lease. So it's only, the 60 days only kicks in, and there might even be a percentage. I've just been doing it for any increase, but it's weird because you have to give 20 days notice if you're not going to renew and they have to move out. But you have to give 60 days notice if you're going to increase the rent.
And in the city of Seattle, it used to be that if you're giving more than a 10% increase, you had to give 60 days notice, prior advance notice. You didn't have to give as long for less than that. But I don't know, does anybody know what the city of Seattle rules are on that? For rent increases, how much advance notice you have to give these days? Scott, what is your rules over there where you're at in Eastern Washington?
Oh, yeah, because just to be clear, I don't own anything in Seattle, so right. That's a specific intentional decision. So I'm sorry, the question, which part of the question?
Well, what are your parameters that you're dealing with over in Eastern Washington or wherever you own properties?
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly what we were talking about. What Dion's talking about is a great idea. It's a great loophole, but if you don't have that in there, if you just have a standard lease, then you're locked in, in terms of whatever your prior rent was, just because of state mandate. So that applies across the state, if that's what you were asking about.
Oh, I guess I was asking, like, in Eastern Washington or wherever you're at, is there any rules on how much advance notice that you have to give on rent increases?
Just in general. Yeah, it's you. I mean, usually we're doing a month in advance. Just as far as what the usual term is, and we'll either go month to month and it depends upon the tenant. It also depends upon the local market, because in some cases, if they're a good tenant, I'll re-up them for another year, even at the current rent, just to kind of lock them in, because I know they're a good tenant. But if they're not a good tenant, then I can still have them on month to month, so that as soon as all these COVID, even though I can't, in some cases there are some restrictions on, especially if somebody's not paying, on being able to evict, all that kind of stuff. But at least I can then we can part ways, so to speak, if it's a bad tenant, much more quickly. You don't have to re-up them for another year. So.
Hey, who's with me here? I thought I saw Sean. Anyways, good topic, guys. Really great topic. Anybody else? Anybody else have any questions about anything they're working on? Let's check the chat, see if there's anything going on. Kenny, you good? You get all your questions answered? Deborah says, what'd you say there, Deborah? That you said that the deposit refund should also be a holdback.
That was when you were structuring your deal earlier, you were talking about.
Oh.
If you're taking over a duplex and there's a renter in there, you've got to do a holdback with the seller on the deposit refund that would be due to the other renter when they move out.
Well, I think in a sale, they have to actually give me the funds on the deposit. Right? Yeah. When you buy an apartment building and there's a deposit, security deposits being held, you get those funds at closing at your purchase. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Hey, I have a question on rents in Seattle in particular, where people are saying, we're talking about raising rents. I'm finding that rents are dropping all over Seattle. And when I have a tenant move out in Seattle, I can't rent for what the last year rent agreement was. It's falling. I mean, I'm seeing 2 months free rent, 3 months free rent, depending on the length. So
that's accurate.
Yeah. And another question I have is, if you sell a property, seller financing, there's another choice you can go with. I've heard, I'm not familiar with it very well. It's called land contract. Is anybody familiar with land contracts? A little. Maybe we can find someone that knows about those and do a little video to educate us.
Yeah, who knows about those is Mariska.
Mariska.
Yeah, and
I understand
hear about it on a future podcast.
Yeah, that'd be great. I understand that the title doesn't transfer to the buyer until the land contract is, closed out, which seems like a better deal than seller financing. Because
some of the perks of selling on a land contract that I understand is that a lot of things like the taxes and things like that are transferred onto the potential, the purchaser.
Yeah.
But title doesn't transfer until they've, paid off whatever the contract.
I think it's tied to an event, right? Go ahead, Robert.
I was just going to say, when I sold off properties in Ohio, and it was 10 years ago, I actually sold on a land contract. And it was really interesting. We did a 5-year balloon on that. So basically, I held the title and I got payments made to me. I covered taxes, insurance, and mortgage out of those payments. And then so I had a very small positive cash flow on that. But at the end of the 5 years, the buyer had actually had some issues financially and basically walked away at the end of the 5-year land contract. So I got the property back.
And did not have
no
to
issues,
foreclose.
No foreclosure, nothing. It just was hand the keys back over. And then I put it back on the market again and ended up selling it off again. So it is an interesting scenario.
Why do you guys think that we don't hear more about land contracts? Because that is, you know, again, that's a way to avoid the foreclosure situation, right?
Yeah.
Most sales are at the time of sale. People want to be a buyer and a seller and be done, you know, so it's for somebody who has a much longer time horizon.
Well, I guess it's also an alternative to seller financing, right? So it's seller financing without transferring the title.
Right. With hindsight, I wish I would have done a land contract because then I wouldn't have to foreclose if they decide they're not going to make their payments.
Yeah, it's kind of the equivalent of lease to own.
Yeah, and it has elements of an option too.
Right, it does. So let's do a podcast about that. Land contracts versus options versus lease options, totally different. Probably land contracts versus options versus seller financing, and we'll get that going. I know who can help us with that kind of stuff. Good topic, guys. Good topic. What else? Anybody? What else is going on? Anybody out there? I'm kind of working on something exciting. I've been given the opportunity to find an equity partner for a 100,000 square foot commercial office building development that's already fully entitled and owned. And I am working my network, including overseas, to find $29 million worth of equity to bring to a trophy property in Seattle for a big 100,000 square foot office building development. Kind of, you might never see me again if I pull that off, right? I might be out of here, but that's kind of fun for me to be working on right now. I don't know what else is going on, guys. Anybody else? Anybody have a buyer? I have Julie Pace would be a good person for the lawn contract. Okay. Hey, Kenny, aren't you the one that told me about the guy with the sub 2?
That's him. Yeah.
That was you, right? Okay. Okay. Just to double circle back up with Joe on that. If anybody is an agent on here working with a buyer that is looking in the $1.2 million range, I have a cool opportunity on a property in the North Beach neighborhood, which is like on the water neighborhood of the Ballard area. I'll call it Northwest Ballard. North Beach Blue Ridge is actually where I live. That is 100% absolutely listed and marketed wrong. And is an opportunity for somebody to swoop in and get a much better deal on a property that has private beach rights and so forth. The North Beach neighborhood where I live, we have a private beach access for all the neighbors. We can bring our dogs, you know, where Golden Gardens Beach is down in Ballard, you know, public beach, really beautiful, right, Olympic Mountain views. Our neighborhood has a private beach, so we can bring all our dogs, have huge bonfires and all that stuff. And if you have anybody that you know that's looking for their primary residence and that sounds like a fit for them in the 1.2 range, give me a call. I have a special opportunity to talk to you about. And there you go. Anybody else? What else? Anyone?
I have a quick question, just a learning opportunity. I'm understanding, you know, hard money, private money, conventional financing, but like when it comes to like commercial stuff and they talk about the loan being based on the deal and not the person, how much detail is that? Is it like, you know, I saw like a 50-unit storage facility for sale, and it's kind of like, how do you get into that space as an individual? Is it really based on the deal really, or is it still some based on your experience and your background and stuff like that?
There is an element of your experience related to securing the loan, but really what that means is that if the deal pencils, right, that on any investment, you know, type of property like that, a commercial or multifamily building, if it pencils where they can use, Scott can pipe in on this, maybe 75% of the rents where the property can carry the debt service on its own, your credit is not necessarily needed to purchase that property, but it will affect your rate, and it will affect your experience, will affect your ability to get a loan. Go ahead, Scott, and pipe in.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it is true that it's more about the deal, but most lenders are going to be looking at certain aspects of yourself. For instance, a lot of lenders will have not necessarily these specific numbers, but to give an example, they may require a net worth equal to the loan amount. It doesn't have to be liquid, but they may require a net worth. You may have to bring in a partner for that. They also may require that you have 10% of the loan amount, and again, that number changes. Just giving you an example, to be liquid, actually, in backup. And some of them are less, some of them are a little bit more, but usually not. So there are those financial aspects that if you don't have yourself, you may need to consider. They will look at experience. Again, like Julie said, not necessarily your credit score, but they'll look at your experience. And if you're getting yourself a 300-unit multifamily and you've only owned your personal home, they're going to look at that real hard. And but at the same time, you can bring in either a partner, or you can have a really good property management company, and frequently that can help you to the gap. So it's just not based on credit score and DTI, debt to income, like a regular 1 to 4 unit residential loan would be.
Go ahead, Dion. You want to say something, Dion?
For most commercial loans, my experience has been they're usually going to want at least a 30% down payment. So while you might have to have the reserves of 10% of the value, and somebody on the purchase has to have the net worth of the whole value, you're still going to have to come up with 30% down. There was a lender in this group 3 weeks ago that was even talking about doing those type of loans on small multifamily. So it didn't even have to be commercial, where they would look at the property instead of the person.
That was knee. So certain lending has a 30-year loan product. Yeah, that was knee.
Hey, Kenny,
Question
I've got
regarding me. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. This is Deb Starr, and I was going to let Kenny know. I've got a friend that purchased 2 of those storage facilities in Boise a few years ago, and he's also a mortgage banker lender. He's a residential lender by trade, but he purchased a couple of those as his retirement plan. And I'm sure he'd be happy to share with you, the ins and outs and, the highs and lows of that kind of business, if you're interested in talking to him.
That'd be amazing. Thank you.
Are you looking at buying some storage, Kenny?
I heard they're a good vehicle. So yeah.
Yeah, I myself, I don't know, Scott, do you own any storage? I invest in storage myself as well. Definitely a great asset class to invest in for sure.
Yeah, I have not directly purchased it. I've invested in other people's deals and syndication and storage. Yeah, all my stuff is either multifamily, office, or retail.
So let's talk about this topic for a little bit longer. So Kenny, if you come across a good deal like that, it might make sense for you to find a partner, right? An equity partner, a credit partner, let's just say. So maybe somebody that has the cash, the liquidity, and the down payment help you with that, right? You bring the deal and you have a credit partner, right? I might be one of those people. Scott might be one of those people, who knows? But Dion might be one of those people. But let's talk about, Scott, would be a good topic, partners. Now, when you have a partner, I'm in some really large partnerships, like 200 unit buildings, stuff like that, right? And there is a threshold of, if you own 20% or more of the property, your credit is counted and reviewed as part of the loan. But if you own less than 20%, your credit doesn't need to be reviewed as part of the loan underwriting.
Yeah, and just to clarify, not necessarily credit score, but you're reviewed as an investor, and you might be, if it's a recourse loan, you may be one of the people who the recourse would go against if the loan, went upside down.
Right. And so Scott, where's the threshold of recourse and non-recourse? When can you get a non-recourse commercial loan?
Yeah, so it's more depends upon the lender and the loan product. So yeah, it's all over the board. There are some portfolio lenders that have loans within their own portfolio that they keep, and they can be flexible on having non-recourse. You can also go to some of the big lenders like Fannie Mae and get non-recourse. Most of them, unless you're a real big, heavy hitter kind of thing with a lot of experience, most of the loans out there are recourse. Frank, for me personally, just my opinion, I don't look at that as that awfully important, but a lot of people do. They're like, oh, I got a non-recourse loan, and well, it only matters if it fails, and if it doesn't fail, it doesn't buy you anything, really. So I have both. I have non-recourse loans and recourse loans, and I just make sure I get properties that I feel comfortable with.
I mean, it's like having an extra stick. If you can get is there a trade-off on rate? In order to get the non-recourse, is there a trade on something?
There can be, and like I said, it's less to pick from. So in other words, you have fewer lenders, and as far as getting non-recourse, you have fewer lenders and fewer loan programs to pick from. There's certainly more out there that are recourse. So just because of competition in the market, you're going to get more more to select from, and potentially a better deal with non-recourse. Now, with recourse. Now, however, some of the really big lenders, and you get into these really big Fannie Mae deals, and they still have really good rates. They can be cumbersome separate from the recourse. I can go into that separately. They can be very bureaucratic and cumbersome, but they do have some fairly good terms.
What's the debt service coverage you're seeing these days? Anybody that knows, or Scott?
For what kind of property? For commercial? Yeah, it's been creeping up. I've seen loan products. I just recently got an email about somebody who was smaller products, and they even had a 1-to-1. I was like, really? Wow. They still have that? But that's obviously not the norm. The norm used to be about 1.2, DSCR, and that's been going up. 1.25, 1.3. I've seen some lenders 1.4. As they've gotten a little bit more stringent. You can still find them, 1.25, stuff like that.
And what's the max loan to value that you're seeing?
Yeah, usually it's a range, kind of like somebody, it might have been Dion, but somebody mentioned, a lot of times they're expecting 30% down, but I have seen less. I've seen commercial loans in the 20s, 20% down, meaning, 25% down would be 75% LTV, to answer your question directly.
So Scott, are you using small local banks when you're investing in Eastern Washington, credit unions, or who are you using?
I have recently, yes. Yeah, I just did a cash out refi on one property, and that was a big Fannie Mae loan, so that was not a local lender. But as far as for new stuff, yeah, I've been working with some local lenders, just a little more flexible, and still have pretty good rates.
And so if you're somebody that owns multiple properties, you have to provide a schedule of real estate, I think, to your lender, right? So they review your whole portfolio. And are they reviewing that each of those properties is having the debt service coverage ratio that they want, or what?
They will, it depends upon the lender. Some lenders I've worked with, they almost all ask for that real estate owned, and as you get more, it becomes more and more of a tedious pain in the butt. But at the same time, fine, whatever, it's part of the process. Some of them will do what I would call selective questioning. In other words, they'll see a property on the list and they'll say, "Tell us about that one," and they'll get down into detail on that one. Usually they'll ask for something where as a whole portfolio, they'll see total income, total net operating income, get a general feel for the total portfolio debt service coverage ratio. But it depends. I've also had others that it just seems to be formality, and I provide it and there's no question. And I think that might be just because I have a track record and I've got, a portfolio and stuff like that. They kind of, they don't question it as much because it's all true and it's based on, a number of years of doing it. So.
Scott,
go ahead, Aaron.
Just a quick question, because it sounds like, you've got, sounds like you got a number of properties. Is the reason that you're like looking at a lot of different lenders, is it just because of location and where the lenders lend, or it just seems like you would be developing a relationship with one or two really good ones and just repeating the process over and over? But it sounds like maybe it's just your history and over the years, but I was just wondering what your strategy is with your lending partners.
Yeah. There's a little, to freely admit it, there's a little bit of squirrel, meaning, it's like, oh, yeah, here's something that's even better, and kind of running after it, and actually in some cases, getting a better program. I do have a few that I tend to go back to, and some of it has to do with geographic coverage. For instance, some are only I-5 corridor, not even Western Washington, but I-5 corridor. Some of them are Western Washington, but not Eastern Washington. So, you got all those kind of factors too. So, and then the reason I did that Fannie Mae, which was not based on a relationship, it was just, big lender, big loan kind of thing, was it was non-recourse, and it had, and I could lock it in for 12 years, which was nice. Just being, because normally commercial loans, frequently it's a 5-year term on it, or at least 5 years fixed, and then it can go up from there. I got the 12, and you can even get higher than that. But I wanted to lock it in longer, and Fannie Mae had a good program for a longer term, so that's why I went with that.
Hey, Scott or Dion, I see some of your notes there, Dion, but I want to give this question out before I forget it. Are any of the lenders, back in the day, they used to do what we call rent rolling, right? So let's say you buy a 6 unit and you've got, or let's say you buy a 10 unit and you've got 6 of the units up to your pro forma new rents, and 4 of them still need to go. You've essentially proven on each unit type, let's just say, that you can achieve those market rents. Will the lender give you credit on your NOI calculation for underwriting for all 10 units at market rent, or are you limited to actual income? Do you guys know what I'm saying?
So my deals are all small multifamily. So that's not the NOI that matters as much as the debt to income. And what they'll do is the very first year is the hardest because you don't have a track record. And so they'll only look at your actual income.
Are yours in the residential loan category or commercial? Are they
mine are residential, but I'm sorry, my thing keeps cutting out. They will factor in future rents, but only for leases you have in place. So if it's a 4-plex and 3 are rented out, they're not going to give you credit for that 4th one. It's what are your current leases, and for residential, they're going to want more than 3 months left on the leases for them to count. And then they'll count 75% of that lease value, the current rents, into your debt to income. So that's for on the residential side. I don't know about the commercial side.
And one thing I'll add to that, what he said is completely true, is sometimes when you work with a local portfolio lender, they can be a little bit more flexible on some of those aspects. However, they may have some kind of offset to it. So for instance, take I think the example you said, you talked about market rent, but let's take a more extreme example. 6 out of 10 are rented, the other 4 are vacant. So you have 60% occupancy. A lot of lenders would not be happy about that. However, a portfolio lender may still work with that, especially if you can provide a good story. However, they may require more upfront. In other words, their LTV would be lower. So you have to put more cash up front.
Right. So Scott, though, but on commercial, you know, they used to do this long, back in the day. I don't know if they'll do it anymore. If you had six, if you had six up to your new market rents and it covered all your unit types, you're stuck with your underwriting on your actuals. They will not let you apply the new market rent to the balance of those units for underwriting. Is that accurate?
Well, yeah, and that's what Dion was talking about too. I mean, you know, mostly that's true, but I have seen what I was talking about. I have seen some flexibility with local portfolio lenders if you can have a good deal, and if you have good skin in the game in terms of your, you know, perhaps a little lower LTV.
So Scott, on the commercial loans, what are the lenders using to underwrite for capital expenditures? Are they picking a number like 250, 350 a unit?
Yes, sometimes it depends on the inspection. Some of them will rely upon the inspector report, and sometimes they'll use an inspector who can make an estimate because, of course, rough estimates are rough. And, you know, if you've got a 2010 built building that's in good shape, that's a whole different ball game than a 1960 building with a leak in the roof kind of thing. So, so it's not necessarily a number, at least for capital reserves. It's usually, frequently they will look at that in that inspection report that comes back.
And I guess I'm not talking about capital reserves like roof replacements and repaving parking lots, which are one-off capital improvements. I'm talking about what I call replacement reserves, appliances and carpets. Right?
Oh yeah. For regular R&M, you know, repairs and maintenance kind of stuff. Yeah.
So, you know, those are like below the line, I'll say replacement reserves. We're talking about turnover costs, guys, for carpets and appliances. And are they using, not for capital roof replacements or parking lots, or are they using a standard number at all for replacement reserves? Or is that being, you know, it used to be back in the day, they would use $250 a unit for their underwriting, no matter what, even if your building is stabilized. Deborah, you gotta mic yourself. Put your mic on.
3 months.
Deborah, put your mic on, or Joe, give her her thing. You get what I'm saying? Like, whether, if your building was stabilized, let's say, they're still gonna underwrite for your loan a replacement reserves per unit for underwriting to calculate your, you know, your value, I guess I'll say your NOI. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm wondering what that is, if there's like a common number, like we're saying 1.25 debt service coverage is kind of a theme, is 250 a unit on a stabilized building for debt, for replacement reserves, a number. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, good.
Are you getting PCRs, or are you just doing normal inspections?
You asking me?
Yeah.
So usually there's something that the commercial lender is taking a look at. They're going to have somebody go out, and it's not necessarily to the depth of an inspection that you would do, Troy, but they have. Yeah, they're going to, and it's different, and I've seen different types. I've seen some that are what I would consider a more detailed inspection, and I've seen others that are somebody walking around with a checklist, and it's pretty high level. You know, are there potholes in the asphalt parking lot or not? And they base.
See, those are the lenders that you want to avoid, maybe, right? I mean, those, you know.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, you'd have to, but it's kind of difficult unless you have a relationship with them, or you know an investor who is invested with them. It's a little difficult to know that up front. So you have to ask, you know, you have to ask what is their process to determine how they're going to assess current condition and underwrite to it. An underwriter is almost always going to look at two things. They're going to look at what's reported. They're still going to look at what the seller is claiming. And because in some cases, the seller will report some things that are really high because they're managing it poorly, and they'll use that higher number, even though you have a value add strategy of reducing some of those numbers. And then the flip side is to use just standard norms for that type of property, that age of property. So there's not a specific number. It depends upon the type and age of property.
Hey, Kenny, just call me when you're ready. 206-910-2985, or you'll find me, DM me on Facebook. Awesome stuff. So one last thing before we jump off here, because we're past our hour, I want to go back and circle back to the partnership question. So when you might find a great deal and you might not have the equity or the experience or whatever, right? When you're getting started. Doesn't mean you might not be able to find a great deal. So you might want to take on a partner. I just want to circle back to, lots of people might say like, oh yeah, you bring the money and I found the deal and I'll do the work to manage it. We can be 50-50 partners. I just want to circle back and tell you how important it is to understand who you're taking on as a partner from a financial standpoint, because they will affect your loan, right? They'll affect your ability to get a loan or something like that, right? Are you following me, Scott or Dion or anybody? Do we want to do, I'm just saying that 20% threshold of their involvement could be a significant thing that you might not want to give somebody more than a 20% ownership, because they might screw your loan capabilities if they are not up to snuff. And I don't ever hear anybody talk about that. And they find it out later the hard way. Anybody want to comment on that?
We cut down our partners on the park acquisition from 20% to 10% because that was underneath. The community bank went to like over 10%. So we went down. They went from 20. I mean, they lost hundreds of thousands of dollars because they've got no cash, no credit, and no real estate experience. So when we refinance, we'll give them equity bumps as we go up, and then they've got higher net worth because the property is appreciated in value and they've got more cash flow to show. But yeah, it's very common, and it's going to change. The 20% changes between what kind of bank you're working at too. Is what
you guys understanding what we're talking about? Do you guys understand what we're talking about? We're saying beware that you don't get so excited that you found yourself an equity partner or some sort of partner. Even if you're the, let's say somebody else is bringing the deal, okay? And you're the equity partner. You need to worry about who brought you the deal. You need to worry about who brought you the deal if they're not up to snuff, right? You don't want to be the equity partner on a deal where your partner that brought you this great opportunity isn't up to snuff because they want 50%. And there's other ways to write up a contract that everybody can still win and be happy, but protect your borrowing power, right? Yeah. Scott, does that sound good? Is that making sense?
Yeah. I mean, you could even adjust your management structure. It depends upon how much involvement you want. Who's the GP and who's the LP, in terms of general partner and limited partners. You can
That's a good
mess around with that too.
You can also, the operating agreement can have unequal distributions, so that every time you do a distribution, you award whatever you want. So they may not have the equity, but if you're going for that cash flow, they can have 10% equity and still have 50% of the cash flow.
Who would I get on? You think Cynthia, maybe Milton? Talk about that, partnership structures we need to find somebody who wants to give us some ideas on partnership structures to protect the borrowing capabilities of this subject matter I'm discussing. What do you think, guys? Cynthia or
John Heyer?
John Heyer? Okay. All right. He's a character. That should be fun. You would have to do it with me, Troy, okay?
I don't know him, so yeah, it'd be fun.
You're still on it with me. All right, Troy. This is Troy. my official new co-host with Joe and I on the nuts and bolts of real estate investing. All right, guys, let's see. Anything in the chat here that we need to cover? I think we're good. If anybody has anything they want to say or ask, now's your chance before we jump off. Okay.
I just got a tip for out-of-state investors. This is a whole topic in its own, but I just got hit with this. Think through your entity structures really carefully up front, because in certain areas, if you have an entity that you purchase a property in, but then you want to change that, even if you're not selling it, you could get hit with some pretty big transfer tax. So Pittsburgh's a good example of that. And since I just got hit with that, I would just throw that freebie out there for folks.
So you were trying to add in a partner or something, and there was a transfer tax related to a partnership interest sale?
Not exactly. We created a new entity because we're trying to separate our, we've grown to the point where we've got to separate operational costs from asset protection. And so we're trying to move a property out of our operating LLC to get it in its own LLC. And just found out that in Pittsburgh, the city, you get hit with 5% transfer tax for any change of title, even if it's a wholly owned LLC, husband and wife to the same husband and wife, wholly owned, different LLC, just because you're moving entity to entity, you get hit with the full transfer tax as if it was a sale. And so that's like it's a slap in the face, but I'm weighing it against the asset protection. I don't want all my operating capital and stuff in jeopardy because it's a higher risk neighborhood. So it's worth it, but it's just, I wasn't expecting it because in Washington, I have to do the exact same thing. And it's $120 or whatever the recording, the title recording fee is, and that's it, but over there it's gonna be several thousand. So it's kind of
does anyone on here put together a new entity for every property that they own?
That's a whole nother topic. Yeah, that's something you discuss with your attorney and stuff, because it should depend on how much equity is across the properties and locations, risk factors of the neighborhood, that sort of thing. You just got to figure out how much you're willing to lose together and what the risks are and what you're willing to jeopardize together.
Have you guys listened to our podcast number 116 with Scott Smith on LLC entity structuring strategies? Have you guys listened to that one? Did you, Aaron?
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, I've talked to them too as a company. So I had a different company set up my LLCs, but it's all good. Every attorney has their own approach to solve similar problems. So what I've been telling other people that ask me, I say, look, talk to 2 or 3 of these big companies that really know what they're doing, and then figure out which scenario fits your strategy and goals better, and also your personality. Because personally, like with Royal Legal Solutions, great company. A lot of people had fantastic, experience with them, but I felt like they were just selling me something and weren't listening to my needs. And I felt like they're selling me this huge package when I just needed a few things. And so then I talked to KKOS lawyers who I've had experience, for 10 years with, and they teach a lot of these strategies, and they had a very different approach, and it just resonated better. So, it made more sense for what I was trying to accomplish today. And the pricing was hugely different. And they're one of the top dogs out there as well. So, it just depends. And then other people said that Royal Legal fit their bill perfectly, and so they went with them. And there's just a lot of good companies out there, and it's just important to talk to them.
Honestly, you're making a good point. Like, who fits with you, right? But couldn't you literally take some of the ideas that Royal Legal Scott Smith is talking about and talk to KKOS about that? I did.
But see, the thing is, like with Royal Legal Solutions, they're really big on series LLCs, which I think are awesome, but they're not, there's no statute for that in the state of Washington. So if you have a property in the state of Washington, it doesn't necessarily work, or at least there's no legal precedent, even though Royal Legal Solutions says, look, they've never had a problem in any state, whether the statute's there or not. That doesn't make me comfortable.
Right.
So, if I had property in a state that had a series LLC statute, I love the theory behind it. I really love the simplicity, the structure, all that, but it didn't fit my scenario. So, I'm not going to buy that product. And they really would only sell me that product. So it's kind of like, what? So anyway, that's my point with that. So Robert, hopefully that helps.
So KKOS does not have a Washington office?
No, they're in Utah based, but they deal all over the country, and they
have offices in Arizona. They have Utah, California, and Idaho. Interesting, in Idaho.
Yep. So, and they teach, like the guy who started that company, he teaches a lot of asset and tax strategy because he has a tax background and a legal background. So he's the one that's like he kind of knows what the other person's going to say. Whereas most attorneys are like, well, talk to your tax person. They still say that, but they have both expertise. So they,
is that Mark Kohler that you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've taken classes from Kohler and stuff. And
Joe, I'm going to give you a topic and we'll see if we can get him on. Okay. Awesome, Aaron. Good stuff. All right, guys. Dion, hold your question for next week because I got to get back to work. Dion put in the chat, guys, that he has a long list of reasons why he has no LLCs for properties. Go ahead, Dion. We love you, so we can't help ourselves. Now we got to know the reasons. Lay it on us, brother.
No, we could talk about it next week, and everybody's situation is unique. The people you usually find pushing for LLCs is going to be the attorney and the CPA that sets it up, charges fees, renews it, files for it, and anybody who's doing commercial. I mean, it's a requirement, so it's totally different. But next week.
All right, next week. You remember though, because I'll forget. Will you remember? Remember to bring it up. All right, guys. Anybody else over and out today? Everybody, remember to give nice, positive, and loving thoughts towards Keith Pitch. Like I said, I believe he's okay, but did you hear that, Troy? Keith was rushed to the hospital with like a stroke type of situation. He's fine. They don't know. They weren't able to determine where he had some sort of mini blockage. He posted it on, I think, his Facebook page, maybe his personal. And so I believe he's at home and he's okay. But we want to give all our collective love and wishes and thoughts on Keith. Okay, guys? He's a very big contributor and great friend to us. So we love you, Keith, if you're listening out there. All right. Over and out. See you guys next week. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you. See you all later.
You guys.
Thanks,